Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I shall be sharing my thoughts on the season premiere of Telltale's final season of the Walking Dead game. Just to let you know, there will be spoilers from the episode itself as well as references to events that take place in past seasons, so if any of that bothers you I suggest you don't watch this video. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. Even if you don't really follow video games closely, there's a likely chance you would have at least heard of Telltale's The Walking Dead game, especially after the huge amount of accolades the first season received. The episodic zombie adventure game kick-started Telltale's career, propelling them to be the huge success story that they are today. Whilst I consider the first season to be practically flawless, season 2 just wasn't able to live up to the hype. Though having replayed through it not too long ago, I actually think it's a lot better than I found it first to be. However, it still doesn't hold a candle to season 1. Telltale's third season, The New Frontier, was when I really started to find fault with the game. I made a review of the entire season last year and I found it to be a bit of a flawed mess. Its decision to push Clementine to the sidelines in favour of a new character wasn't a decision I think worked out for the best, and it didn't help that I found the overarching story to be rather dull and generic. With that in mind, I think it's fair to say that the Walking Dead game has declined in quality since its debut season, with The New Frontier being the series' lowest point. And because of this, I have been a bit cautious about how the final season would turn out to be. However, I'm glad to say that after playing through the surprisingly lengthy first episode, this is very much a return to form for Telltale. The game plays better than before, it looks absolutely beautiful, and the story, whilst admittedly treading over some previously used themes, is gripping and suspenseful. Ultimately, the narrative is always going to be the main thing these games are judged on, so I'll start by discussing the story first, which seems to be coming full circle. In the first season, Lee risked his life protecting Clementine, but now it's Clementine's turn as she has to protect little AJ, with the game asking the player what kind of guardian they want to be. Telltale have somewhat of a reputation for giving players difficult choices to make in their games, such as choosing whether person A or B dies, and whilst there are some typically Telltale-esque choices to be found in this episode, most of the big 50-50 decisions consist of asking a player how they are going to parent AJ. For example, there's one scene in which AJ snatches a toy from a lad named Tian. The toy is Tian's and predictably he gets upset about it. It's up to you then as Clementine to decide whether you want AJ to give the toy back or to keep it for himself. Now on the surface this may seem like a fairly low stakes thing, but like the game tells you early on, AJ is influenced by your decisions, so these relatively minor choices can actually have huge consequences in the long run. You might think that telling AJ to keep the toy is no big deal, but you need to think about what this course of action teaches him. If he keeps the toy, then you're basically confirming that he's allowed to take what he wants, even if it's not his, and that's not something that I agree with me picking the option for him to give the toy back to Tian. However, looking at it from another perspective, perhaps this kind of attitude is a good thing to have in the apocalypse. After all, it is survival of the fittest out there, so perhaps it's wise to teach children to be mean and take what they need. Honestly, I don't know. I don't think there is a clear-cut right or wrong answer in this situation, and that applies for most of the choices throughout this instalment, with this being reflected by the fact that the community seemed to be split down the middle regarding what their Clementines ended up doing, which in my mind is a very good thing. Another choice that stuck out to me was when AJ wanted to curl up and sleep under the bunk bed in his and Clem's room. As expected, you could either allow him to sleep there or tell him to get into his bed. Again, this doesn't seem like a big deal, but you have to think about it a bit deeper. If you allow AJ to sleep on the floor, whilst this might make him happy, it's not really a responsible thing to do. Also, it may make him believe that he can do whatever he wants because Clem isn't willing to tell him otherwise. On the other hand, if Clem tells him to get up from the floor and sleep in the bed, not only does it confirm that she's his boss, surely it's also better for him than sleeping on the floor. However, AJ said that he felt safer under the bed, so if you choose to put him in bed, how do you know that he won't be too frightened to actually go asleep? Then you have to deal with the fact that he may take a disliking to you for not letting him sleep on the floor. For the record, I told him to get into bed, but again there's no real right or wrong choice here. I understand if this all sounds very boring to you, and perhaps a couple of years ago it would have sounded the same to me. Maybe now it's because I'm a boring dad, but I really enjoyed what the writers were going for here. When thinking about what to say to AJ, I thought about what I would say to my own daughter. And with me being the stricter parent in the household, I know that me and my wife could argue for days about what approach to take with him. This is how choices should be in Telltale's games. Thought-provoking with no obvious correct answer. Of course, I probably wouldn't be gushing about looking after AJ if I hated the kid, but surprisingly I have to say the little scamp is bloody likeable. The writers have managed to capture the same magic that made the players feel the need to protect Clementine back in Season 1, and I always felt that I wanted to do the best I could for him. The fact that he's one of the most intelligent kids I've seen in the Walking Dead universe, no doubt helped by the fact that he was born into a walker-infested world, just makes me like him even more. For example, there's a scene in which Clem and AJ are searching a train station building for food when they come across a door they can't open. Inside the station sits two walkers tied up in a chair. the remains of a couple who killed themselves, who left behind a note stating that this was what they wanted, requesting no one disturb them. Now next to the locked door there is a window that can be crawled through by AJ in order to get to the other side and unlock the door, but it's dark in there, so who knows what's actually in there. My mind was made up as soon as I realised what the two choices were. No way was I letting AJ crawl in there and hurt himself. I was going to get the keys from the walkers. However, due to gameplay design, sometimes The Walking Dead forces the player into examining both options even if they don't necessarily want to, which is a minor annoyance which I'll mention again later. So anyway, I went to grab the key from the walker, but Clementine hesitated, saying it was too dangerous. I then walked to the window and examined it, at which point AJ remarked that it was too dark. He then went on to say to Clementine that she should kill the monsters and take the key, as walkers aren't people anymore. It's at this point that I wanted to scream hallelujah out loud. Finally, a clever kid aside from Clem in the Walking Dead universe. Instead of kids who like to throw rocks at walkers or feed them animals, AJ knows his shit, and this only made me like him more. Of course, the game still gave me a choice to make, with Clementine playing the role of devil's advocate by giving me a reason for sparing the couple instead. But I just thought that it was pretty cool that at this moment AJ's thought process matched up with mine. Great minds think alike. Moving on from the characters now, I want to talk about the plot, although I'm not going to spoil the entire episode. To briefly sum things up, Clementine and AJ get into a sticky situation during the opening, and end up being rescued by a new group. Although they seem hostile at first, they are a friendly bunch, and interestingly enough they are all kids, with them choosing an abandoned school to call home. It's genuinely nice that Clem gets the chance to be around kids for once instead of being stuck with adults. It helps create a more organic environment and also causes some pretty awkward conversations to arise, like when the guy who plays the piano asks Clem if she's ever had a boyfriend. It's a bit too soon for that, buddy, you've only just met the girl. It adds an interesting dynamic because it feels like everyone is on an equal footing, and it means that hopefully we won't encounter the kind of jarring scenes that feature in Season 2, when an entire group of adults swarm around Clementine to ask her what to do next. The kids in the school aren't going to win any prizes for the originality of their characters. I mean, you've got the weird kid who doesn't know what to say, the flamboyant music star, the jock leader, and the moody emo girl, to name a few. However, I did end up liking most of them by the end of the episode. Viola, aka the moody emo, was the one character who I rolled my eyes up at first, thinking she was going to be that annoying aloof member of the group. Surprisingly, by the end of the episode, I found her to be one of my favourites of the new cast, with me even choosing her to assist Clem at a crucial moment. Although for much of the instalment it doesn't seem like there is a big bad antagonist, the episode ends in such a way that it makes it clear that there is a much larger threat to the group out there. As I've already said, I don't want to go into real spoilers, so I won't, but I will mention I did like the plot twist at the end, and I'm excited to see where things go next time. Only one episode into this season, and I've already found myself more invested in this group and setting than I did during the entire New Frontier campaign, which is a credit on Telltale's part. In terms of gameplay, not a lot has changed since last time around. It's still a QTE and dialogue choice heavy fest, which personally I don't mind, but this kind of gameplay might not appeal to everyone. There are a few notable changes however, like the new over-the-shoulder camera when controlling Clementine, meaning the game appears more like a traditional third-person game. It doesn't make a huge difference to the gameplay, but it does feel like there's a bit more freedom, especially with a movable camera. However, this game is still very much a matter of getting from A to B. Simply put, if you didn't really get on with these games before, this probably isn't going to change your mind. I mentioned previously about having to examine choices which you don't want to make, and there's a weird example I want to mention that happened at the start of the game. There's a scene when AJ and Clem are in the car in which AJ remarks that he's hungry. The camera then pans to 3 items on the front passenger seat. A magazine, a toy, and some food. AJ is hungry, so I want to give him the food, but the game won't let me. Instead, I have to give him the toy or the magazine first, which will then trigger another cutscene, and after that, Clem will notice the food on the seat and give it to him. It's only a minor complaint, but if I can see the item there which I want to choose, then why make me choose something first? Ultimately, this really took me out of the moment, and it's one of those instances in which you're reminded that you're playing a video game. The last thing I want to moan about is the save importer, as I had real trouble importing my save. However, I'm not sure if it's just something that I've done wrong, as I'm not seeing many people make this complaint. However, I'll just mention it in case it does benefit anyone else. Upon starting the episode, the game asks you if you have a previous save to import. I said yes and imported my save from the New Frontier, which was a save that I carried over from the first 2 seasons of the game. Strangely though, it seems that none of my decisions from Season 1 or 2 have carried over. I don't know if that's because I've done something wrong, but I'm sure I imported my Season 2 save in the New Frontier because characters made references to the choices I made in seasons previous. So if you've had this issue, please let me know. Whilst I'm on the subject, I want to mention that I didn't like the decision maker at all. I understand it's difficult to squeeze 3 seasons worth of choices into a 2 to 3 minute introduction, but it's a bit disappointing when the game doesn't allow you to make the same decisions that you made previously. For example, during the season 2 finale, I let Kenny kill Jane, only to then kill him immediately after. The decision maker presents the player with the choice of letting Jane die or killing Kenny. Naturally, I picked the option to let Jane die as that's what happens during my playthrough, expecting then to be given the choice between sparing Kenny or letting him live. But nope, that was it, on to the next decision. So in my Walking Dead universe, Kenny could be alive somewhere now, which is annoying because that wasn't how it went down for me. As a tool for making quick decisions for players who have never played the game before, it suffices. However, for people like me who want to replicate what happened in a game previously, it just doesn't work. I'll have to look into why my save file didn't transfer properly in the coming weeks, but it's a shame that I couldn't play with all my previous decisions intact. 2 more quick things I want to mention before I wrap up. Firstly, as said in the intro, this game is absolutely gorgeous, especially when you look at the way shadows appear on items in the background, as it gives the appearance that they are straight out of pages of the comic book. Secondly, there's a fantastic scene which I don't want to forget to mention, which takes place in the dark of a cellar. Clementine is trying to find something to open the door, only equipped with a flashlight, knowing there is a walker down there somewhere. It's the only time playing the Walking Dead game that I felt genuinely scared, and this scene deserves a special mention because of that. In conclusion, Done Running is a fine opener to Telltale's last season of The Walking Dead. I enjoyed the setting, Clem and AJ were both likeable main characters, and the narrative was an enjoyable ride even if it didn't present anything particularly new, leaving me interested to see what happens next after that shocking ending. Done Running has made me care about Clementine again and made me care about Telltale's The Walking Dead. This was everything I wanted when slogging through the below average New Frontier, and I can't wait to play through the next installment in roughly 6 weeks' time. So there you have it. Did you enjoy this episode or did you not? Please let me know your thoughts below. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.